Hello, my amazing artists. Today we are going to be creating a polar bear like Bear from the story Every Color. We're going to take some inspiration from the amazing Canadian artist Ted Harris. Today, to get started, you are going to want a blank piece of paper. You are going to want a pencil. You might want a permanent marker. You might want some crayons, and you might want some watercolors. The first things first when creating our awesome polar bear is we are going to think about his nose area. To do that, I'm going to be drawing an oval kind of towards the top of my paper. Inside that oval, I'm going to turn another oval on its side where it's a little bit wider than it is tall towards the bottom. And then I'm going to draw a letter J and a backwards letter J to make that kind of muzzle area of the bear. Now above this snout of the bear, I'm going to be drawing two eyeballs. I'm going to use a small oval to do each of those details as well. So now I've got a face for my bear, but my bear needs a body. To do the shape of the bear's body, I'm kind of going to be using an upside down letter U. I'm going to start it on one side of the paper on the bottom, and then I'm going to bring it up and around, making it a little bit skinnier towards his head and a little bit wider towards its bottom. Now my bear needs some awesome paws because the bear in our story did a lot of painting. So I'm going to use again some letter U's. This time I'm going to put them at a diagonal. And I'm going to do one on each side. Bears have claws, so I'm going to add in some ovals for my bear's claws. I'm going to put in 4 on each side. Next, my bear needs some ears. I'm going to use some triangles to do the ears. I'm going to do a little one and then a big one, and I'm going to do that on each side, just like so. Now, my bear needs a place to be. Where do bears live, particularly polar bears? You're right, they live in the Arctic territories. So to show that, I'm going to be creating a landscape using some horizontal lines. And later when I add color, I'm going to think about the ice and the snow. So I'm just going to be adding in some lines that go across my paper horizontally. I'm going to be putting some curves and diagonals in the mix, but you can kind of decide how you want to do things. Maybe there are some mountains. Next, I'm going to think about the sky in my picture. One of the cool things that we see in the artwork of Ted Harrison and in many other Canadian artists' work is their description of the northern lights, of the way that the colors dance in the sky. So to show that, I'm going to use some wavy lines that come in at a diagonal, radiating around the head of my polar bear. Awesome. Now I'm ready to trace with marker. Because the marker I'm going to be using is permanent, I need to protect my table. One of the things that I'm also going to be adding in as I trace with marker is I'm going to add in some dashed and dotted marks to think about the furry texture of my polar bear. I'm going to be fast forwarding this part, but remember, you're going to want to take your time. Once you are done tracing with marker, it would be a good idea to take your eraser and erase any pencil lines you didn't end up quite on top of, so that you have some awesome craftsmanship. Then you can start thinking about color. If you're using crayons and watercolors, you're going to want to do the crayons first so you can experience what's called wax resist. That's when the wax of the crayons resists the water in the watercolors. I'm going to start by using some of my white to make sure that my polar bear stays fabulous and white and doesn't end up getting colored with the colors of the sky when I go in to paint those. So I'm just drawing with my white crayon kind of around the edges so that that wax resist technique can help keep my polar bear looking fabulous. Alrighty. Next, I'm going to be thinking about the analogous colors, colors that are next to each other on the color wheel. Two of the big groups of analogous colors that we often think about are the warm colors and the cool colors. The warm colors are red, orange, and yellow. The cool colors are green, blue, and purple. I'm going to be using blues and purples in the ground of my awesome winter landscape, and I'm going to be using the warm colors up in the sky. I'm going to put my protector paper off to the side so it doesn't get wrecked when I paint. I'm going to start with the crayons, and I'm going to use them kind of around the edges and sometimes in the middle to do some texture and wax resist. Then I'm going to transition to painting. Alrighty, as I go into paint, I'm going to start with my lightest color. I'm going to get some water in my brush, and I'm going to add just a little bit of water to the paint color that I'm using. I start with yellow because yellow is the lightest of our color wheel colors, and I want to help make sure that that yellow stays nice and yellow. Then I'll swish my brush in my water cup to keep it clean and swipe it on the lip. Then I'll add some drops of water to the orange and keep moving until I fill the whole area with paint. As I'm painting, I'm using beautiful brush strokes, making sure that my paintbrush ballerina is dancing across the paper on her tiptoes, not scooting around on her bottom. Again, before I switch colors, I swish my cup brush in the water and I swipe it on the lip, making sure that that water is coming out clean before I go to move on to my next color. This is a great way to make sure that we are taking good care of our supplies, making sure that those colors stay nice and are ready to go the next time we use them. Now, we don't have lids to our watercolors necessarily, but a great way that you can mix colors is to work when both of those colors are wet. It's called working in a wet on wet wash. You do want to be careful not to add too much water, but that is a cool technique that you can use. Make sure that you're rinsing your brush in the water cup in between each color, again to keep your paints clean and make sure that they will work nicely for you for a long time. When you're all done painting, give your brush one good final rinse. Then find a safe space for your brush, your paint, and your artwork to dry. Make sure that you're cleaning up your workspace and posting your artwork to Seesaw. I can't wait to see what you create.